this is the first leg of my garden tour, and this is the first of my series on my gardens here in rural Nova Scotia, um, on the South Shore to be exact. I hear a lot of people saying there isn't much for garden content out there for us people who live on the South Shore of Nova Scotia. And frankly, we are in a bit of a microclimate here, and things have changed even since I first started gardening. So, to get that underway, let's start with the garden tour. To just start us off, it's a bit hard to get an angle in here, but this is what we call Garden 2. It's the second garden we built here on Homestead 2. It's fenced in, and we've done things a bit different this year. So this year we put our beans in here. So we have 4 rows of yellow beans, and then we have 5 rows with 2 succession plantings of peas in here. I also placed some marigolds around the perimeter, and down at the end I put in some cucumbers. So I'm gonna show you now a close-up of those things, and just give you an idea of what it looks like spacing wise, and how things are growing. So let's get to the close-up. Okay, so as you can see, as you come through the entry, there are our 4 rows of yellow beans. Last year we planted green beans, and we still have lots of those green beans in our freezer. I planted, as I said, on the perimeter, the mammoth marigolds. I didn't grow these by seed, I bought them as starts. And then here is, good morning. Here is my pea setup. I started out with the middle row of peas, and as you can see, they're flowering already. These are Laxton's Progress peas. I like them because they are easy to grow, they're a heavy producer, and this year I plan to have enough peas to freeze. So we freeze our beans and eat them as our vegetable side over the winter. It's the best way I have found for preserving our vegetables. And so we're going to do that with our peas as well. So I wanted to plant enough to have some to freeze. So the middle row is the first planting of peas, and those were put in April. And then 2 other rows were put in, one on either side, in May. And then down here I planted my cucumber starts, and these cucumbers were, let's see if I can find the tag, because I know I put it in here so I would remember. They are English cucumbers, so nothing fancy. I like an English cucumber. I'm not a fan of all the seeds. So what I did was plant them down here in the corner. So to give you a different angle and a bit of a view of my spacing, so walking space only in between these rows. I am a heavy planter as well, so I don't pay much attention to spacing guides on vegetable seeds. So yeah, there's cucumbers in that corner and that corner, 2 plants in each corner, and then mammoth marigolds around the perimeter. And that's it in here for this year. We pared down how much we are planting by a lot, and I will talk a lot about that in my series coming up, gardening in Nova Scotia. So yeah, that's garden number 2. Okay, this is garden 1, and there's famous Sophie. This is garden 1. This is the first garden we put in here on Homestead 2, and this has seen 3 or 4 years of planting. Off the top of my head, I can't remember, but this is garden number 1. So I'm going to give you a close-up view, but right now I want to show you that we have onions here in the top of the garden. I have horseradish right over there. I also have some squash and cucumbers planted on the perimeter, and cauliflower. I also have the mammoth marigolds in here, and there are volunteer plants. There are carrots here next to me, and beets, and a lot of weeds. Okay, so yes, lots of weeds. We just had a huge rain, and the weeds are not weeds, but the plants that grow in here are uh, clover and lamb's quarters and volunteer potatoes from years before, which we don't mind. Those are staying in the ground. They're volunteer. And then last year I planted Chinese artichokes, and I do not recommend those. We didn't like eating them, but they also never go away. So I'll talk a bit more about those in my gardening advice video. So yes, starting up here, mammoth marigolds. There's the entrance and famous Sophie. So mammoth marigolds. These are cucumbers that I put in. So that'll need a trellis, or it will probably just grow up um, the cage. Now these are both enclosed gardens because we are, as you can see, in the forest. So horseradish, I love horseradish, and it's very easy to grow. So I planted horseradish uh, last year. It didn't do well, so I transplanted it into here, and this year it looks like it's going to do pretty well. So onions, we have yellow and red onions in here. I bought 200 onion sets, and of course, as you can see, that's not 200 in here, but I do not go by spacing, as I said before. So yes, and there's our volunteer potatoes. And lots of weeds, as I said. So another mammoth marigold. And over here is where I planted 3 plants of cauliflower. And then moving over here are my squash plants. Now I planted buttercup squash, and there are also cucumbers in here, and a yellow zucchini plant that I was gifted. Now you can see in here, all of these are the Chinese artichoke plants growing, and they are highly invasive. I guess not if you like to eat them, but now my beets aren't looking too great, so I think I'm going to replant my beets. We had a bit of a drought situation for a couple weeks, and it didn't do well for them. And so I have 3 rows of beets here and 3 rows of carrots. I don't pay attention to spacing of carrots either, because you can weed out, you can thin them and eat the babies. Sounds very dark. And there are my cauliflower plants, my mammoth marigolds there and there. So that is garden number 1. Now let's just take a view coming back this way. So garden number 1. Now in previous years, like I said, we had potatoes in here. We had green beans in here. We had onions also. This was a very full garden before, but adding the second garden, was a definitely a good choice, but also thinking about what we want to grow, and what we eat the most of and what we can store most of in the winter. So I'll talk more about that in my garden advice video. Now, looking down here, this whole line of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bins are all potatoes. I find the biggest success in growing my potatoes in pots. And I will talk more about that in the, I know I keep saying it, but I'll talk more about that in my gardening advice video. But these are our potatoes. So they are just large plant pots that we purchased secondhand. I did grow in grow bags before. I'll talk more about that, like I say, in the garden advice videos. But these are all our potatoes. They are golden potatoes. Um, I think Yukon Gold potatoes. But yeah, these are all of our potatoes. Right here on this tree, which needs to be trellised, right there. This is a pine tree that is right next to garden number 1. And we have hops. Now, I'm growing hops for a couple of reasons. Um, and I think I'll let you in on why I'm growing them in my garden advice video. But that's where my hops are growing. If you're familiar with the Homestead, um, this is our pond, which we use both for watering and for attracting wildlife. Um, and so most of what is grown down here is grown for aesthetics or, beauty. But some things are growing down here on purpose. And some of those things that are grown down here on purpose are our hostas. So we put hostas down here, we put white clover down here, and those are here for uh, snacks for the deer. So I call them my sacrificial hostas and sacrificial clover. So that keeps the deer more interested in down here. For aesthetics wise, I have a nice flower garden here with milkweed. I have Tradescantia and some trilliums and ferns. I have sea holly is my newest plant in here. That's in the back there. I love that plant. It's a great wildlife attractant. And a lot of the things that I'm growing down here are tall flowers and tall plants. Taller, sturdy flowers and plants attract um, attract dragonflies. And the dragonflies are important because they eat the horseflies. If you've ever been in the forest of Nova Scotia, you know that those horseflies or deer flies are horrendous. And dragonflies also eat a lot of other pest like flies. I planted a lot of irises and lilies here. I just like them. There's alliums, basically anything that's going to flower and grow tall are what I like. I highly recommend planting Tradescantia. This Tradescantia is a native Tradescantia. And look at the just pretty little flowers. Bees and pollinators really like them. There's a lot of natural grass down here as well. And we have crabapple trees. So this is crabapple tree, and that's a crabapple tree, both given to us as gifts from Chris's uncle. So let's go this way through the garden path. Paths are, I was just talking about this morning. Paths are really important to me because I like to do a walking meditation. This birch tree bent down during the ice storm this past winter, and I'm going to make it into a archway here. But paths are really important to me because I like to do a walking meditation. So as I walk along, I try to be present. I try to meditate. I try to take a moment. So everything needs a bit of work and whippersnipping because uh, if you're following my socials or if you're following my YouTube, you might know that Chris has hurt his leg, and so the whippersnipping needs to be done, but it will get done when it gets done. And that path from the pond leads over here to, as you can see, you can go the way Sophie's going up to the gardens, or you can go this way to my wattle beds. They're in there, I promise. And our fruit trees. And eventually, this will be our front yard. So I have rhododendrons planted here. I have one there that's a cherry cheesecake rhododendron. It took a big hit with the ice and the drought. And I'm going to talk more about drought preparation in my garden advice video. Over here is a Japanese maple that I was bonsaiing. It's not doing well, so I planted it in the ground and we'll see what happens. And that is a blue bayou rhododendron that took a big hit during the drought, but is coming back. So let's see. There is one of my circle wattle beds. I like how I used pine here to build them, and I like how it's turning red. It's really pretty actually. We need a dirt delivery. We're waiting on that. So over here is one of our apple trees. So we've been purchasing inexpensive apple trees and planting them in what will be our front yard. They're protected from deer for the most part. So there's one there, and we splurged on a Honeycrisp over there. And I'll tell you what that one is over there shortly. So there's one of my circle wattle beds. I made those this year, 3 of them. And here is my first wattle bed, which needs a weeding terribly, but I didn't weed it because I'm waiting for my calendula to come up so I can tell what's what. But as you can see, my chamomile is growing in here. I have calendula. I have garlic chives and Egyptian walking onions. And there are some volunteer marigolds in here. More chamomile. And a whole lot of chickweed. Our weeds, we pull our weeds, we feed them to our chickens and our pigs. So if it's something that I know could be invasive, it goes in with the pigs because their poop and their pee is acidic and it will kill any seeds. And then the compost from the pig pen goes into our compost and back into the gardens. So on this rock wall was built probably 100 years ago plus. And it is why I love this property. And this will be a feature in our front yard. So on the rock wall, I do have things planted. I have creeping thyme. Creeping thyme is a great ground cover. We have some ornamental flowers, dianthus. I have Mexican sunflowers in here. Torch tenanthes. If you haven't grown them, I highly recommend. They are extremely beautiful and extremely good to grow, easy to grow. So yes, there's some of our creeping thyme. I bought plants, but I think I'm going to start some from seed next year. and just to hold on to the soil here on the rock wall. There are more things planted down the rock wall. There's torch tenanthes, put a few plants of that, and down at the end is a butterfly bush. There's also a couple of plants I got this year at the Rare Plant Show. Heath. This is a heath. It is crossleaf heath. And that would get like a low shrub. And let's just look at those flowers, are so cute. So I bought that. I also bought this at the Rare Plant Show. It is a lavender cotton Santolina. Oh, I think Sophie saw a snake. There are a large amount of snakes in this rock wall, which we are fans of. So we have some wood from cutting down trees, and this is a good view of my second wattle bed that I built. Now, in this wattle bed are my arnica, which is very prolific. I did not think it was going to be that prolific when I bought it. It is amazing. I use arnica a lot in my products. This red yarrow, also very prolific. And there is some lemongrass in here. Let's see if I can walk down here while videoing and not fall and break my neck. So I just put in lemongrass in here this year. And there it is. So I have 6 plants of lemongrass. Now you can see we deal with a lot of ferns here. I'll talk about how we deal with those in another video. In here I have native bee balm. So that's what this is, native bee balm, and torch tenanthes planted in there. This is very special. This is my ginkgo tree, and eventually when she gets really big, we will harvest ginkgo leaves from that. Ginkgo, of course, is very good for you. Now, it's a bit hard to see what's going on here because so many weeds, but these weeds just came up since the last rain. Now in here is borage. So I planted borage. It is a great fertilizer. So you chop it down and you can lay it in your garden beds for fertilizer. And I plan to grow borage in this. It's also very pretty. So there are some more of our apple trees. As I say, this one was a splurge for us. It's a Honeycrisp. And of course, there's a popple tree in there because the popple trees are everywhere. Right here is a black lace elderberry, which is a great pollinator friendly plant. And over here is a new purchase this year of a black pussy willow. Yeah, so when the little pussy willow paws come out, they're black. So this is our front yard, and we eventually will not have all these ferns in here. I like to keep a few. They're really not that bad for having around. There's also a huge amount of blueberries in here. So we love our blueberries. I used to make a lot of tea out of them. I'm not going to be making tea anymore, but we do love our blueberries. So yes, this is the front yard gardens. In my garden journal, they are named as I named them to you. There's a bit of a close-up of that arnica. It's really pretty and, just like I say, really prolific. I also have I forgot that I also have boneset growing in here. I grew boneset last year. I did try the tea, but let me tell you, it will knock your socks off, that tea. But it's very good for you if you have arthritis or anything like that. So I'm going to take you up to the strawberry hugel mound now and talk a bit about what we're growing up there. So there, just for reference, is our pig pen. And then over here, there are things planted in here and things that grow wild here that we are nurturing. So these are huckleberry bushes. Huckleberries are my all-time favorite over blueberries any day. Love huckleberries. So over here is where it all started up here. We started raspberry canes over here. We have haskap. We have all kinds of things. Heather, that's a nice big patch of heather, which is good for pollinators. Over here we have haskap bushes, and we actually got hascaps on them this year for the first time. Right here is a currant, black currants. That's the other haskap. Over here we have gooseberries. Now, I haven't worried too much about keeping these pest free or nurturing them this year. Just didn't make the list where Chris hurt himself, but all of this is usually cleared out, and eventually there'll be a barrier around these so that the bunnies don't eat them. Now here is where I transferred all of my raspberry canes. You can see these little hooks are what mark where they are. They're growing really well. I think eventually I'll probably purchase more raspberry canes. They're, as you can see, getting some raspberries on them. And going along here are high bush blueberries. And you can see we've got some blueberries. Eventually these will be covered so that the birds don't get them. But right now we're just letting the plants establish. So these are, of course, huckleberry bushes. So each time I find a huckleberry bush, I am marking where it is, and this will be our berry production side. So we have high bush blueberries 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 here, and then 5, 6, 7. I have some volunteer mugwort. I use a lot of mugwort in my products, but I also use it in my practice. And if you don't grow it, I highly recommend. It's very beautiful. It's pollinator friendly. Yeah, so there's a high bush blueberry bush here that needs to have this fern taken out. And over here is my strawberry hugel mound. Now this year we didn't worry so much about getting the strawberries from it. I expanded, as you can see, and we put in we had a spontaneous little road put in here. So this will be enclosed. I want to enclose it and make sure that we can just leave the enclosure on and open it and go in. But it is a hugel mound. If you're not familiar, a hugel mound is a mound of sticks. You start with logs, then you go smaller and smaller as you go, and you put dirt on top. And so that's how I chose to grow my strawberries. I rarely have to water them. There is some pest pressure, but I'll talk about that in the gardening advice video. That's my strawberry patch. Those are my blueberries. This is my compost base. So this was our first compost, and you could see how it was full to the top earlier in the spring, and it is draining down or like composting down. And then this will be moved over to the middle, and so on and so on. We have cardboard that goes in between that we have saved. Like I say, all of this would be cleaned up and whippersnipped, but we are on hiatus for that until Chris's leg gets better. So that is the garden tours for now, and I'll get to the Homestead 1 garden tour next, and I'll see you when we're down there.